With more than 30 Americans currently being held captive around the world, any change to U.S. hostage policy is more than theoretical. Since the time of Jefferson, there has been a prohibition on paying ransoms. But now, President Obama has announced that families paying for the release of kidnapped loved ones will not be prosecuted. What will actually deter would-be kidnappers? Journalist Michael Scott Moore shares his experience as the captive of Somali pirates and provides insight into the intersection of policy and reality in this edition of Rewind.
I spent 2.5 years as a hostage in Somalia, and several myths came apart while I was there. Not just about Islam or about pirates in general, but also about one point of American hostage policy. The desert bush in Somalia consists mainly of thorn bushes and acacia trees and not much else. And we wound up in a spot not quite near the coast but not on the coast, with a sort of sandstone cliff, and there was a mattress waiting for me. So it was all very well organized. They knew I was coming. The first thing they gave me was a little bit of bottled water, a can of tuna, and some bread. And that would, except for cooked rice and pasta now and then too, that would be my diet for the next 2.5 years. In the first couple of months, I lost 40 pounds. So that was one of my first impressions as a hostage. Two other hostages, poor African fishermen, captured near their home, distant from Somalia, hauled back to Hobyo, and held for the staggering sum of $20 million, which would be the demand for me too, by pirates who pretended to be disgruntled fishermen, oppressed by big industrial fishing boats and so on. And my pirates, this really stood out. My pirates thought for a long time that the US government was going to pay. They thought an American means money. I know that because one guard named Bashko, who became a friend of mine, would give me updates on negotiations. Whether they were accurate or not, I don't know. But he would come in and say, "Michael, there's news." And then I would hear every month that I was about to go free. After a while, I quit taking him quite so seriously. But it wasn't until mid-2013 that he said, "Michael, America, no pay." Which meant there was going to be, it was final, you know, the Somalis had finally decided it was true, they were not going to get money from America. So that was the second myth exploded. American hostage policy, at least the way it's talked about, doesn't necessarily keep us safe. In the end, it took 2.5 years for my family and a dedicated team of negotiators to get me out of Somalia. The ransom was about $1.5 million, and on my last day, the pirates, without warning, delivered me to the Galkayo airport. So along with these three myths, which the kidnapping managed to vaporize, I think there's another myth that's worth mentioning, that at least in my own mind, that I walked around with. I can't speak for anyone else, but I think before I went to Somalia, I went around, I thought I knew a thing or two about love. I thought that somehow I loved enough to get through an average day. There was a profound sense of having failed to love enough. And so if I can leave you with just one impression, I think that would be it. I have the strong suspicion that none of us love our families quite enough. And that may be one of the most popular myths we walk around with from day to day.
Was there a moment when, you again described for the first couple of months, you would hear helicopters and planes flying over the place you were, but then it stopped. Was there a moment when you sort of gave up hope that, they will never find you?
I heard periodic surveillance aircraft through the whole time, but after the first year or so, I was held alone inside in houses, and so after too much time, basically in solitary confinement, I started to give up hope. Yeah, because I thought if anything was going to happen, it was going to happen in the first several months, and after a while, I stopped. By 2014, I stopped actually thinking I was going to get out.
Michael, can you explain the change of policy today that you heard today from the White House?
I mean, the thing that made the headline yesterday is that Obama wanted to make it clear that under the new policy, nobody was going to get prosecuted for trying to pay. No families would get prosecuted for trying to pay to get their own relatives out. That's important, but that's also That was also a big misunderstanding, evidently. I was in Somalia when that became a great big controversy, I think last spring.
On the deterrence effect of essentially lethal force or something. I think my impression of many of the Somali pirates is they were so desperate in terms of their own situation that going out to sea in skiffs 700 miles offshore was an acceptable risk. So really, would hanging pirates or anything actually have a deterrent effect on this kind of behavior?
The one deterrent effect that has worked is having armed guards on cargo ships. I think there was a fear in 2008, 2009 that that would lead to an arms race on the Indian Ocean, that the pirates would just, arm up and overcome whatever the armed guards had on a cargo ship, and it would just get worse and worse. That hasn't happened. I think if there were a consistent death penalty, or that's a bit draconian, but if it were consistent and a pirate knew that if he got arrested in the Seychelles or in America or brought back to Europe, whatever, then yeah, that would be a deterrent. Right now, especially the way they were punished in Germany, there's no deterrent effect.
For more information on Iran and related topics, visit wilsoncenter.org. Click the Programs tab and search under the Middle East program.